Okay,
Stephanie,
I'm going to start with a question.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with a question that I'm obsessed with.
Yeah.
Where has the Republican Party gone? Because in the last week, specifically following the president on Easter Sunday dropping an F-bomb as it relates to the war and really making the war sound like a religious war.
Right.
You've seen the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm not surprised. She's obviously broken with the president. That's been over the last year. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Alex Jones, and Tucker Carlson have now very clearly broken, right? And I would say like that those are three MAGA super enthusiasts, right?
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson himself said he didn't just vote for President Trump, he campaigned for him.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not in the business of talking about the likes of Tucker on this program or any other very often, but it's really telling that these people are separating from the president because this is a enormous violation of a campaign promise, no new wars, America first / America only. But the likes of John Cornyn, John Thune, right? The Republican
actual leaders in the Republican Party
of Congress who actually have power are saying virtually nothing. And there's all this like reporting like, oh, well, there's this 60-day rule in Congress and maybe they're going to wait the 60 days. And when the 60 days happen, then they're going to exert their power. Baloney.
Yeah, I mean, and I was on TV when the post came out on the weekend, and it was the first time that I've used that kind of language on TV.
Wait, you said it?
Yeah, I said it. And but here's the thing. That, in theory, in a normal week or a normal month, would be the most outrageous thing that happened. But then on Tuesday morning, and I'm sure all of America and all of the world has seen this now, but I just want to remind you what Donald Trump then said. Like, Donald Trump basically told himself, hold my beer, in which he said that he is going to destroy, a civilization is going to be destroyed at 8 p.m. tonight, talking about Tuesday. A civilization is going to be destroyed. This is not war on the Iranian regime. This is not regime change. This is a civilization is going to be destroyed. This is not even swearing on social media. This is talking about genocide and war crimes all in one. And while I sort of bet, Stephanie, that it wouldn't happen because it's actually war crimey and genocide-y, the idea that it's out there and these people are not responding to it is kind of amazing, right? Like, what more has to happen?
It's very funny that you
what
say
more
this.
does Donald Trump have to do to get a reaction from Republicans?
Because you're talking about your reaction and covering this on Sunday.
Yeah.
So yesterday, I spent the majority of the day talking to Wall Street sources who shrugged off Donald Trump saying what he said, wiping out civilization. And they were like, oh, don't worry, nothing's happening tonight. There's going to be an extension, ha, ha, ha. And they did laugh it off. And lo and behold, there was an extension. And it was funny because when I was on TV last night, as grateful as I am that they didn't like unleash a wrath on civilians, it's also not just how is this going to look in the history books, but like, come on.
Yeah.
All of this, not just reindeer, like when it was reindeer games and it was tariffs, that's one thing. It's money, a lot of money, but we're talking about human lives.
Yes, on all sides, human lives on all sides.
Yes.
Military people, innocent civilians, and not just in Iran or Israel, but in Lebanon and all over these countries where missiles are raining down. So let's just break from tradition, right? I don't think you and I have played a Tucker Carlson clip on this show. I don't generally agree with Tucker Carlson on much. Let's just listen to the argument that he used yesterday after what Donald Trump said.
Unless somebody puts the brakes on right away, we're going to wind up in a place that we can't even imagine. Not just Iran, us and the rest of the world. And so that means, because this is obvious to anyone who's paying any attention, that if you work in the White House or in the U.S. military, now it's time to say no, absolutely not. And say it directly to the president, no. In case you're thinking about using some weapon of mass destruction against the population of Iran, in whose name we liberated Iran, we killed their religious leader for their benefit. Do you remember that? This was last month. Those people who are in direct contact with the president need to say, no, I'll resign. I'll do whatever I can do legally to stop this because this is insane. And if given the order, I'm not carrying it out. Figure out the codes on the football yourself. Because everything hangs in the balance right now. This is not hysteria. This is 100% real.
That's kind of, I mean, Why can't an elected Republican who actually has power in the United States Congress, who can pass a law to say that the president cannot wage war without the permission of Congress, as the Constitution and the says? Why are we not hearing that from regular elected Republicans? Oh, wait, I think you're muted. Hold on, unmute.
What do you think the answer is? Like in this case, is it that they're just too afraid of Donald Trump? Because again, you know, there were some Republicans making the argument. Who said it? Was it Tom Tillis?
Yeah.
Who said, well, you know, it's not him, it's the people around him. Baloney, Allie.
Yeah.
Like the president specifically handpicked these specific people around him for this very reason. So when he wanted to say the extreme, do the extreme, they wouldn't push back. He chose this. I almost said this semester. He chose this term not to have H.R. McMaster. He chose not to have Gary Cohn. Like bang, 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 because not to have Jim Comey, because he didn't want to have anyone say no, Mr. President.
Yeah.
So while he's flanked by Stephen Miller and Howard Lutnick, they're just saying, yes, Mr. President. And by the way, when you do it, you look handsome.
Remind you to send your questions into velshi.rule@ms.now. We've got a bunch of questions that came that we got on video and on by email. I want to
start playing them.
Yeah, let's play one of the questions, Christina.
Hi, my name is Lisa, and I guess my question would be, how close do you think we are realistically to nuclear war with Iran?
That's a good question. Wow. See the look on her face when she asked that, because nobody ever wants to actually have that conversation. I think it's a few things important to understand. Number one is Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. And if you believed, as some people do, or you make the argument that they're very close to having a nuclear weapon, you'll remember that the last time we were in a 2-week negotiation period with Iran last June, the U.S. and Israel bombed Iran, and Donald Trump said categorically that he obliterated Iran's nuclear program. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, confirmed that to Congress very recently. He said Iran doesn't have a nuclear, they've not been able to repair anything. They were not closer to having a nuclear weapon. They don't have a ballistic missile that can go to the United States. So in order to have a nuclear weapon, you have to have a weapon, a warhead, and a missile that can go to places. North Korea's got that. Pakistan has it. India has it. Lots of countries. America has it. Britain has it. France has it. Iran doesn't have that. So we're not at nuclear. We wouldn't be at nuclear war with Iran. I guess the question is, would we use a nuclear weapon on Iran? Because we have them.
But can I explain the problem with the truth that you just dropped?
Yeah.
That Donald Trump is lying about Iran having nuclear capabilities and continues to do so. So the fact that you just reminded us that last summer the whole administration said, we've wiped out their nuclear capabilities. People forgot that. Or the fact that in the last few weeks, Tulsi Gabbard said, no, they don't.
Yes.
It's almost meaningless, because the average viewer out there, the average voter, doesn't know who Tulsi Gabbard is and didn't watch the hearing where she spoke. However, I myself talked to Donald Trump 3 weeks ago, and on that call, he said to me, Iran was 2 weeks away from having a nuclear bomb and they planned to use it. Okay? Yeah. Donald Trump, if he said that to me, he has said it to an infinite amount of other people and repeated it and repeated it. So in the right-wing circles where he needs that information to flow, on my Easter Sunday with my family, my parents are saying, I know this is terrible. I wish we weren't at war, but thank goodness he stopped them. Why? Because right on cue, they were 2 weeks away from a nuclear bomb that they planned to use on us, which there is no evidence to support that argument.
None whatsoever. And here's the interesting thing. When people make comparisons to the war in, when we get into wars that we otherwise maybe shouldn't have got into, people talk about Afghanistan, they talk about Iraq, they talk about Vietnam. In Iraq, the intel about what Iraq had in terms of weapons of mass destruction was entirely wrong. Entirely wrong. And we ended up in a war. Whether you think people were lying or they were deliberately misled, the intel was wrong. The intel on Iran, which Tulsi Gabbard told Congress about just a few weeks ago, was 100% right. They don't have a nuclear weapon. They've not enriched their nuclear capabilities since we apparently obliterated it, which we didn't do. If you went to war with Iran, they would close the Strait of Hormuz, price of oil would go up, price of gas. 100% of the information was there. So why, Stephanie, why would you be in a situation where the intelligence community has lots of information and a lot of good information, And yet the president ignored all of it to get us into this war that we're now into the 6th week of.
Well, one could make the argument, or if, the New York Times yesterday had excerpts from this upcoming book that's coming out about the whole lead up to the war. And in these excerpts, it's basically he was convinced from Israel. Israel convinced
Right.
the president to do this. And with the exception of J.D. Vance, who was like, yo, I'm not sure this is a good idea. Everyone else, even though they may not have thought it was a good idea, it was clear to them that after the president spoke extensively to Netanyahu, and Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff met extensively with Benjamin Netanyahu, this is what Trump wanted to do.
Yeah.
So they weren't going to be the person to roadblock that.
But when the founders started this country, they had no idea. I remember that they had just they hadn't defeated Great Britain, right? Like the idea that this bunch of rabble would overcome the British Empire was hard to believe. They certainly didn't believe America was going to become this massive military power that could wage war on other countries. And yet they still thought that it should not be housed in the bones or the feeling of one person to go to war, right? So you're just making the argument that lots of people with a lot of information said, maybe we shouldn't do this.
Okay, but Ali, you're making an argument that doesn't ring true in 2026, right? We've talked about this before. One of the reasons America is exceptional, one of the reasons foreign investors come here is because we have 3 separate but equal branches of government.
Right. Which lends to stability, right?
Correct. To me, Donald Trump's core number one focus in Donald Trump 2.0 is to wipe out the 3 separate but equal.
Yes.
And him be a sole ruler. And listen, he is not the first.
No, presidents been doing
but
this.
We have seen
Yes.
the last several presidents.
Yes.
I'm going to say,
Squeeze a little more power.
overstep when it comes to executive orders.
Yes.
Right. And part of it is Congress can't get anything done, and presidents have pushed and pushed, and Donald Trump has stopped pushing, and he's just simply blowing through it.
So I was curious. It didn't get much play because things were busy the last few days. Jamie Dimon, who is often thought of as a voice of reason in corporate America. He's probably one of the most important people in corporate America, CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase.
Morgan.
I thought he was much more accommodating of the idea that we've stumbled into this war than I expected. He sort of said, look, Iran's a real threat, and, we got to contain this, and I know that it's going to make the price of oil and gas higher, and that's a problem, and, not ideal, but hey, you got to do what you got to do. I was a little surprised by that.
And I think you're a little naive. Because you know what Jamie Dimon is facing?
Yeah.
A $5 billion lawsuit personally that the president has launched against him and his company.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing, but I'm going to use an educated guess, that he has spent the last 3 weeks having an extraordinarily painful rectal exam with lawyers dealing with the mountain they have to face because they're facing this antagonistic lawsuit from the president.
Right.
They're probably poring over the zillions of emails. And I'm not saying that there's any wrongdoing whatsoever.
No, but that's just the nature of a lawsuit.
In fact, the lawsuit that they're launching to go after JP Morgan, I think, is baseless and nonsensical, but it's a huge headache for Jamie Dimon. So I personally think, and I can tell you a number of sources that I spoke to said, yeah, this was Jamie trying to, I assure you, after Jamie Dimon, I would bet my bottom dollar, made those comments, I am sure his team made sure Howard Lutnick, Scott Bessent, and Donald Trump himself, because Donald Trump is acutely aware of market movements and the market and business leaders supporting him. And business leaders right now, look, you've got airline CEOs now saying, pay attention, the price of fuel is adversely going to affect our business. You're going to see all sorts of, what it's going to do. So Jamie Dimon being like, oh, well, they're really bad guys. Maybe this wasn't so bad. I'm sorry, buddy. I'd bet a whole lot of nickels that has something to do with the fact that Donald Trump has Jamie Dimon in a bit of a grip with this painful lawsuit.
We got an email question from zmailroom@gmail.com, which
I'm
reads...
sorry, what is that name?
I know, zmailroom@gmail.com. I like that, right? So, sort of sounds kind of fake. Hey, Zmailroom, send us another email just to make sure you're not fake. How was the timing of the firing of Pam Bondi tied to trying to divert attention away from how bad a job Trump did addressing the world about Iran? I mean, it's a tricky question, right? Because what is a distraction from what, right? There's some people who call the Strait of Hormuz the Strait of Epstein, thinking this whole war was an Epstein deal. So I've lost track of what is distracting from what today. I don't know, but Pam Bondi...
Okay, but here's what I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I can't answer the Pam Bondi question, but I can take you down Trump 1.0 memory lane. I can tell you during the first Trump administration, there was a few people that I spoke to regularly in Trump 1.0. And I was visiting the White House, and it was right after, I don't even remember what it was. Like we can pretend it was Charlottesville, but some embarrassing, inexcusable action of the president that the White House and Republicans didn't want to answer for. And I was at the White House and it was an introductory meeting. So it was an off the record meeting, but I was, how are you going to address this and that? And the person sort of in a very sinister way chuckled and pointed up at the 6 TVs. And all 6 TVs were Donald Trump and they were different headlines. And the person said to me, we don't have to answer for that story. We just need to wait 24 hours and wait it out. There'll be a new story. So I don't know that Pam Bondi's firing was a distraction from what's happening in the Strait in Iran or the Kristi Noem, any of that. I know that this administration, this president revels in the news canon. And when there's bad news, they don't care. Great, more news is coming, more news is coming.
But that's the swearing on Easter, the saying that we're going to end a civilization. Could it all be the same thing? Like we as journalists don't have the right to decide on behalf of our viewers. We're just not going to tell you the story, right? The president.
Yes, but my love, do you know what story isn't going away? Like the FU is going to go away. The civilization, we're going to move past that. The Epstein files are not going anywhere.
Right.
They're just not.
The other thing that's not going anywhere right now, I want to put up the price of gas.
Oh boy.
Oil came down today after last night's, not ending civilization stuff. Stock market is performing very well. But at the start of the war, gas was $2.98 a gallon. You and Charlie did some work on this to say that Donald Trump in the State of the Union suggested it was far cheaper than it was, but it wasn't. It was almost $3 a gallon. It's now $4.16 a gallon. And gas works on a lag to the price of oil. So even with oil prices coming down, you're still likely to see gas prices going up from this point.
100%. And I'm going to make 2 points. And the second is some breaking news. Even this idea that we're going to have a ceasefire. They're going to open up the Strait of Hormuz and everything's going to be chugging along. That's not the case. It goes right back to your point of the lag. But even if they opened it up, read the terms of the ceasefire.
Right.
They're going to open it up. It will still be controlled by Iran. They're going to make the decisions. They're going to have to get paid a toll for it. These oil tankers are not run by the military, right? You don't have Donald Trump behind them saying, forge ahead, boys. This is private industry.
Yes.
If you're running one of these ships,
it's like literally, it's a skeleton crew on a big tanker truck. Like these are sailors.
Correct. And don't be so sure that they're going to hop on board. But I want to share breaking news that has just crossed. Iran parliament speaker says that the ceasefire deal with the U.S. has already been violated, right? We don't know any more details than that, but here we are. We're not even 24 hours out.
Right.
And so we're back in this dance, in this game of the president saying, look, things, we're done. We're moving on. Markets soar. The price of oil goes down. Everybody's happy. What is it? 18 hours, and they're saying the U.S. has already violated the ceasefire.
Well, he said right after midnight, he pointed out that the United States will be helping with the traffic building up in the Strait of Hormuz. There'll be lots of positive action. Big money will be made. Iran can start the reconstruction process. We'll be loading up with supplies of all kind and just hanging around in order to make sure everything goes well. I feel confident it will. Now, since then, Iran has said, we haven't opened the Strait of Hormuz. And then Caroline Leavitt at the White House has said, that's false information. Now, I'd love to be at the Strait of Hormuz and tell you there are ships going through, but we're not there, and we can't see them. But here we are. This is the thing. We're what 13 hours in, 14 hours into this thing, and is the Strait of Hormuz open or is it closed? Traders are behaving like there is some kind of ceasefire in effect that is going to have some meaningful outcome. I want to remind people, I'm not sure how much farther ahead we are than we were yesterday. All that's happened is that Donald Trump didn't do something about Iranian civilization last night, but I'm not sure. He keeps saying 2 weeks. 2 weeks is his favorite timeline, right? He says everything is 2 weeks, within 2 weeks. So I don't know what that means. 2 weeks,
and many people
tell me.
But Ali Velshi-Poo, let me make this point. Oh, we actually have sound. Let's play that.
Let's play it.
Answer that
Christina?
question better
Okay.
in 2 weeks. I'll do this at some point over the next 2 weeks. I'll announce it over the next 2 weeks. I'll tell you about that in a month from now or 2 weeks from now.
You trust President Putin? You know, in about 2 weeks.
You can ask that question in 2 weeks, and we'll see. It'll be out in about less than 2 weeks. We're going to start selling, hopefully, in about 2 weeks.
So 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. 2 weeks serves investors. 2 weeks serves not even long-term investors. 2 weeks serves the market because investors are like, great, buy today, sell tomorrow. They're
Yes.
just playing a game. But
Yes.
we have said this before, the stock market is not the economy. That has never been more true than right now because the impact of what's happening in Iran, this ceasefire, no ceasefire, that causes markets to get really volatile, and that's fine for traders, right? A volatile market is
Yeah,
great
they can
for
make
people
money
who
going-
trade in the
coming and going.
markets. But the actual economic impact, what this is doing to the cost of helium, what this is doing to the cost of fertilizer, what this is doing to businesses that have nothing to do with the war, but businesses who are simply saying, so I know I was planning on doing an expansion. I know come June we wanted to do a big hiring program. Let's pause because we're at war and we don't know what the future holds.
Yes.
And so the impact that the war in Iran is having on the actual economy is far greater than the reindeer games taking place in front of us with the markets. And I say reindeer games because of the daily ceasefire, no ceasefire, we're getting close. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
noise.